So we're about to dive into one of the most unbelievable cons in history. It's the story of the one guy who had the guts to try and scam Al Capone, America's most feared gangster. And the craziest part? He didn't use a gun. He used an idea. All right, let's set the scene. It's Chicago, 1929. We're deep in the Prohibition era. The whole city is just this powder keg of illegal booze, backroom gambling, and, a whole lot of violence. And sitting on top of this entire explosive empire is one man.
You know who I'm talking about. Al Capone, Scarface. He liked to think of himself as just a simple businessman, right? Just supplying a demand. But in reality, he was this untouchable kingpin who ruled through pure terror. He was incredibly rich, unbelievably powerful, and, famously ruthless.
Which brings us to the million-dollar question. How on earth do you even begin to think about conning a man like that? I mean, this is a guy whose solution to most problems involved a baseball bat or a Tommy gun. It really sounds like a suicide mission, doesn't it?
To really get this story, you have to understand the two people at the center of it all. Because in one corner, you've got the most powerful, dangerous gangster in the country. And in the other, you have a master con artist.
And man, the contrast between them is just night and day. Capone was all about brute force. He was a brawler who controlled the physical world, the streets. Victor Lustig, though, he was an artist of deception. He was this charming, completely broke, psychological genius who didn't control people, he controlled what they believed. It was the ultimate showdown of brains versus brawn.
Now, Lustig was smart. He knew he couldn't bully or intimidate Capone. No way. So he went after the only thing that was as big as Capone's criminal empire: his ego. He didn't walk in with a threat. He walked in with a business proposition, one he was pretty sure Capone couldn't refuse. So, Lustig lays out this beautifully simple plan. Step 1. He tells Capone he has a secret, inside track on a killer stock deal. Step 2. He makes this absolutely wild promise to double Capone's money, a 100% return. And step 3, the price of admission for this amazing deal? $50,000 in cash for just 60 days. And here's the absolutely crazy part. It worked. Capone, a man who trusted nobody, was so fascinated by Lustig's sheer confidence, and let's be honest, the pure greed of the offer, that he actually counted out 50 grand and just handed it over. The hook was in.
But what Lustig did next, that is the real genius of this con. He took Al Capone's $50,000 and he did absolutely nothing with it. I mean, really think about this for a second. He didn't run, he didn't try to invest it. He just went to a bank, rented a safe deposit box, locked the cash inside, and waited. For 2 whole months, he's just living his life in Chicago while Capone's money just sits there, completely untouched.
Exactly 60 days later, just as he promised, Lustig walks right back into Capone's office. But he doesn't look like a guy who just hit a jackpot. No, he looks awful, defeated, apologetic, like his entire world just came crashing down.
He walks up to the most dangerous man in America and tells him the one thing you should never ever tell Al Capone. "I've failed." He explains that the surefire deal went bust, that the money was gone.
Can you just imagine the tension in that room? Capone is just staring at this guy who's confessing to losing $50,000 of his dollars. In Capone's world, that's a death sentence, plain and simple.
And then, Lustig does the absolute last thing anyone would expect. He reaches into his briefcase and he places the entire $50,000 right back on Capone's desk. Every single cent he was given.
Then he delivers the knockout punch, the psychological checkmate. He says something like, "The deal failed, and I've lost everything. But I came back to give you your money. I failed you, but I won't steal from you."
So, this is the moment of truth. How did Al Capone, a man who built an entire empire on violence and mistrust, react to this completely unheard-of act of what looked like honesty?
He was stunned, utterly speechless. In his entire life, no one who had ever lost his money had ever come back, let alone returned it to him. He was so used to being lied to and cheated that this act of apparent integrity just completely short-circuited his brain. He was totally disarmed.
And because Capone was so completely fooled by this performance, he stopped seeing Lustig as a failure. He saw him as something he'd probably never encountered before, an honest man.
In Capone's eyes, Lustig was the most honorable crook he'd ever met in his life.
So, to reward this incredible integrity, Capone reaches into his own pocket, pulls out a stack of bills, and hands Lustig $5,000 just for being a stand-up guy. And that was the real target all along. Lustig never wanted the $50,000, he was playing for the $5,000.
With his $5,000 profit in hand, Victor Lustig thanked Capone, walked out that door, and was gone. He left Chicago that very night. The con was a perfect success.
What Lustig pulled off here is a perfect example of what's called the honesty con. It works because it plays against expectations. See, Capone expected everyone around him to be a liar and a thief. So when Lustig performed this act of radical, fake honesty, Capone's cynical worldview just couldn't compute it. He was conned by his own expectations.
And it leaves us with this really fascinating question, right? In a world that runs on suspicion, what's actually more powerful? A threat that you can see coming, or the disarming power of unexpected trust, even if that trust is just a perfect illusion?